Hello everybody and welcome back. Today we are canning tomatillos. Again, gardens produce all that produce. You need to preserve it somehow. And tomatillos, they produce a lot. They produce a lot. So, I've already dehusked many of them. If any of you know what a tomatillo is, it comes with this papery husk that gets thrown away. But you're going to dehusk them all. Take that husk off. Clean them because they are going to be a little sticky. That's not bad, but they are going to be a little sticky. And then you're going to chop them up. We're into that phase of making the tomatillo salsa. Not much to be seen there. We're going to chop them up and get them into the bowl. The only thing that I did not record is the cilantro going in because I did that with my first batch of tomatillos that I diced. That I do to taste. Typically, you're going to use about a half cup per pound of tomatillos. I go by taste, so I do about a cup in my whole tomatillo salsa. I just don't find cilantro does great in the canner. That's part of my reasoning. If we put too much in it, it just gets a weird taste. So, let's dive in. I waited a little too long with these. These ones I actually got from a friend, so I'm cutting a little bit more off of them. So guys, we have all our tomatillos diced up with the slicer. That's about 6 pounds worth of tomatillos. I think my scale's a little bit off, but that's what it's telling me is it's 6 pounds. So, for 6 pounds, you're going to use 1.5 white onions. 6 to 12 peppers. I use serrano peppers. I do not take the seeds out. You can de-seed them so they're not as hot. You can also use a milder pepper if you choose, but that's up to you. 6 cloves of garlic. I have my monster elephant garlic here, so I'm only going to use probably about a quarter of this garlic clove, because that's a lot of garlic. So, 6 cloves of regular garlic. And then you're going to use your salt and your lime juice. Let's first get these into the chopper so they can chop up. Like I said, I did put cilantro. I do cilantro to taste. Typically, you would do roughly a half a cup of cilantro per 3 pounds. So, I do about 3/4 of a cup to a cup is my max I put in usually. I actually am following that to a T with what I've currently got. For the peppers, since I don't de-seed them, I just take the heads off with the stem. I cut those off, and those will go into the chopper. Serrano peppers are a little bit hotter. They're hotter than jalapenos, so if you don't want as hot, you can go with jalapenos. If you want milder, you can do a mix of jalapenos and a sweeter pepper. I prefer having a little bit of heat with my salsa. Just basically cut these a couple times just so it makes it easier to chop them. You could hand chop everything. Why would I do that? That just takes more time. I love my chopper. I've got the Ninja chopper. I love it. It works amazing. Definitely recommend it. Again, I'm going to use like a quarter of that garlic. And we're going to get all that into the chopper. We should probably take the very end off of that garlic too. Now it goes into the chopper. I do not roast my tomatillo salsa. Some people do roast it. I don't prefer it roasted. I prefer it just canned. Love tomatillo salsa. That's just the way I prefer it. You may prefer it roasted at that point. You may want to follow a different recipe since I do not roast my tomatillo salsa. It's all in the chopper now. We're going to go ahead and blend that up, chop it up so it can get mixed in with the tomatillos. And then it'll be the salt and the lime juice. And then technically it's done besides canning it. Not too hard to make, not that time consuming, and not many ingredients. There are some recipes that have other ingredients. This is all I do in mine. Simple. Let me go chop this up. So this next step is kind of strictly for canning purposes. If you are not canning it, you could omit this step. It does add some flavor though, so it is recommended. But for every 3 pounds, you would use a quarter of a cup of lime juice. So for this one, I need half. And then you're gonna do salt to taste. I do about 3/4 of a tablespoon of salt for this much salsa. You do it to your taste desires, so add it slowly. Because I am canning it, I do use the pickling and canning salt. And if you don't have pickling and canning salt, do kosher salt, not the iodine salt. Then you mix this stuff up and you see how it tastes. Since some things are to taste, you obviously want to kind of mix it, taste it, see if you need to add any more of anything. You want to mix it up anyway before you put it in the jars, so it's not all the peppers are in one portion of it and everything else. This by far is my favorite salsa though. So this, my friends, is a cold pack. So like I've said in the past, if you're doing a hot pack, you need hot jars. If you're doing a cold pack, you need cold jars. The jars should be cleaned and disinfected, so make sure that is previously done before you start packing them, and then just let them cool down. You could heat the salsa and do a hot pack. I just prefer doing it cold pack. That's just how I do it. So we're just doing our cold pack salsa. Leave about 1/4 to 1/2 inch of headspace, and just you basically are filling your jars up. Once the jars are full, you're going to take get the air bubbles out and wipe the rims, put the lids on, and you're going to can this in a cold water bath. Don't have your water already boiling, guys. It's got to be a cold water bath since you're starting out cold. You're going to take a butter knife or something, just kind of go around, get the air bubbles out. If it frees up space, you can add some more in. Otherwise, you're good. If you're using a butter knife, be careful, because you can easily scratch up and ding up and chip your jars, so be careful. And then you're just going to wipe the rims if you need to with a clean rag and vinegar. You're going to take your clean paper towel, wipe your rims, get anything off of there. If you had anything that dripped, take your clean lids. They do not, I gotta get a different size, they do not need to be boiled anymore according to ball standards. They just need to be clean. Put that on and finger tighten your lid, your band. Finger tighten just means don't crank it on. Once it stops turning, basically it's on. Once you have a full canner, put your jars into the canner and make sure the water covers them by 2 inches at least. Bring the water up to a boil, a nice rolling boil, and once it's boiling, you're going to process these jars for 20 minutes at a rolling boil. So we're going to get this up to I'm going to say pressure. It's water bath, so there's not a pressure. Get it up to heat, up to boiling, and then we're going to let this process for that 20 minutes. After it's done 20 minutes, you turn off the heat and you leave the lid on for 5 minutes so that they can gradually start to cool down before you take them out. Also, make sure when you take them out, you set them on at least a towel or something along that line. Some people use cardboard as well, or a wooden cutting board. Don't put it on the cold counter, because you could crack your jars from hot to cold. So you don't want to cause that thermal shock. So let's get this up to heat, let's get it going, and we'll see what we end up with. Now guys, the final step. I know these are not the jars that I already canned, but the other ones are still cooling and I just want to finish the video. But you're going to take the bands off of the jars, because you don't want to leave those on because it puts pressure on the seal. It could cause it to break early, but it also could cause a false seal. If the jar does unseal, that band being on there will cause it to reseal if the optimum conditions present themselves. So then you can end up having contaminated spoiled food with mold spores or other bacteria, and you would never know the difference. So you take the band off, and then you're going to check, make sure that this middle button is down. It should not indent, it should not move, it should not make any type of pinging sound. If that is down, then you want to pick up your jar by the lid. You should be able to pick it up because it's vacuum sealed. If that lid comes off, if it is loose, if it wiggles at all, it is not sealed. Then you have basically 24 hours after processing originally to reprocess it or put it in the fridge. If you miss that opportunity, then put it in the trash because you don't know what could be in that jar. So that's how you're going to check your seals once it's all said and done. You've now got at least a year and a half to enjoy your food. It could be longer. Some people eat their stuff 5 years later. Obviously, the longer it sits on the shelf, the more it deteriorates. So keep that in mind. Guys, happy canning. Hope you guys learned something, and we'll catch you on the next one.